All right, we got Will Erokan.
Erokan, yeah.
Ah, nice. Okay, I still got it. He's joining us again. Thanks again, Will, for coming back on. Last time, one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I couldn't even remember the author's name, which is just a huge faux pas on my part, but was William Burroughs and The Naked Lunch, and sort of how this fits into the McLuhan kind of Joycean universe, if you will.
Yeah.
So what?
Well, sorry, what was that?
No, I was going to ask what did you get from Burroughs?
So when I was like 14, maybe, my aunt gave me Naked Lunch. Right? Maybe I was even younger than that. And like she wrote in there like, you'll like this in a bit, in a couple of years.
In a bit, yeah.
Yeah. But like I think she read it when she was like 14 or 15 or something. So she thought that I would too. And so then I did one summer and I fucking hated it. Like it was like disturbing. It made me feel gross. It was just like negative, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever read it?
No. I reserved it from the library, but Jerry was telling me about it, and then I was reading on Wikipedia, and it sounds like it's this weird like journey that's totally disjointed.
Yeah.
Of this guy's consciousness, and he's like an addict or struggles with addictions or something like that.
Yeah, he had a bunch of problems. And so I was reading this book this summer when I was like 14 and very disturbed by it, and I didn't want to read it anymore. And like I forget exactly why, but my parents, they were like, you have to read a book this summer, like you can't just fuck off,
Yeah.
And so I was reading that, and they knew I was reading that. Like, are you done with that book yet? And I was like, no, I'm not done with this book, and I didn't want to read it. I was really mad. But I couldn't really explain to them why, because it was like too transgressive,
Were your parents pretty conservative?
No, but when you read like Naked Lunch, think about being like 14 and reading it, and then it's pretty graphic. It's pretty fucked up. But so I couldn't really like explain why.
Yeah.
And they thought I was just like rebelling. It was an awkward thing. But I did read it, and then it starts like repeating itself. Like I was just like, this is fucking deranged. It's very strange. And I thought I didn't really know too much about Burroughs, but I remember thinking it was as if he just like cut up some shit and was just pulling it out. It didn't make any sense.
Right. Completely disjointed.
Yeah.
Stream of consciousness.
And it's not one of his cut up books, but it turns out after that he did make cut ups. He did a trilogy, like Western Lands and Wild Boys and some other. It's a trilogy of them. Maybe the Ticket That Exploded. That's one of them too. These cut up books. But Naked Lunch was pre-cut ups.
Right.
If that makes sense. But yeah, and then so it really left me kind of the bad taste for Burroughs. And then when I was a little older, like at the end of high school, my friend Tom was reading them. He was reading Western Lands, and I was like, no, fuck that. I tried to read that guy. I don't like him. And he's like, oh, you're kind of talking about similar stuff. Like maybe you'd be interested in it. And then our friend's older brother, he was reading it too, and he was pretty cool, And so I was like, okay, I'll give it a chance. And I read Junkie, and then I read Queer, and those are both like narratives. They're just novels. They're easy to read. And I was like, okay, yeah, I like that. And then I read Western Lands first and read those. But around that time, then I got pretty into it. If that makes sense. But when I first read Naked Lunch, I hated it.
Right.
On a deep
level. It was too extreme, too much too soon.
Yeah, it was really shocking.
Yeah. But his other stuff, is it pretty shocking? Like honestly, I have no real point of reference with Burroughs.
Yeah, his other stuff is shocking too. I think I was just too young and didn't have like
Mhm.
the,
Point of reference. Like
yeah,
people do
exactly.
this? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you find out
Yeah.
people do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. It's very strange. He's a weird guy. Um, but of his books, I'm more into like these days. I'm more into like The Job, which is an
The
interview
job is
book. Yeah, The Job,
called.
which was an interview done with him and maybe Ian Somerville or something. Some other guy interviewed him. So that's pretty interesting. And what's the other one? Electronic Revolution, which is pretty short. It's like 45 pages or less even. Yeah, it's very short. That's a really good one too.
It's called electronic. What, sorry?
Oh, yeah, Electronic Revolution. Here, let me close the window. And it's about using like tape recorders and maybe even video and cut ups and stuff for magic.
For magic.
Yeah, it's
Interesting.
pretty cool.
Well,
Yeah,
because magic itself is a pretty like it's trickery of the eyes and the senses. I mean, because what's happening is perfectly explainable, but to us, to the naked eye, we're like, whoa. And so he's talking about electronics being used to sort of
for like curses and to kill people and stuff.
oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Not like stage magic, but like
I see. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
like
Like hexing.
tactical. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When was that written? The electronic age revolution?
Maybe in the 80s.
Because I saw those commercials that he narrated for Nike.
Yeah.
Were those actual Nike commercials in 1998?
Yeah.
Those are like really weird, almost like 1984-esque.
Yeah. But I mean, like, if you like the Apple, was it like the first Apple commercial was a 1984 thing, and they did it again, and when the iPod came out, they kind of like revisited that.
Oh, I think I somewhat remember that commercial.
Yeah.
And that was for like Apple, like Macintosh, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that was in the 90s too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was
Or
all
like the late
like,
80s even.
yeah.
Maybe, yeah, early 90s. Yeah.
It was very, I recall it, very Orwellian. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so it was like in the zeitgeist. It was okay to make commercials like that. But but yeah, having Burroughs in there was probably a little weird. He was making he was in Portland doing what's it called? Drugstore Cowboy.
Mm.
Did you ever see that film?
Heard of it.
It's it's Gus Van Sant, right? And so he was in that, and he was in Portland, and Nike's in Portland. So I think it was easy just to like use him.
Yeah.
Like he was around, so they were able to incorporate him in.
I always thought Drugstore Cowboy was a David Lynch film.
No, it's not. But similar area.
Similar kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like tonally different, but a similar geographic region. Like Drugstore Cowboy, it's all in like, I think like in real life, I think it took place in Olympia, or at least partially in Olympia.
Oh, like Washington.
Yeah. And then in Portland also, because it's based on a true story. Do you know that?
What's the premise of Drugstore Cowboy again?
I
only know the title. I'm not familiar with the story.
Yeah, there's like I think 3. It's like a couple and then their friend, and they're robbing drugstores for what's it called? Whatever the opiate was back then.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like it was pre-Oxycontin and all that, something else, Yeah, and
Quaaludes. Was it Quaaludes?
Post Quaaludes.
It was Quaaludes?
No, after Quaaludes.
Oh, is that okay? So after Quaaludes, before Oxys.
Yeah, but there might have been quaaludes in it a little bit too, but mostly opiates. But so they were like they'd go into drugstores and they'd have like they'd fake a seizure and then one of them would sneak into the bank and rob it, stuff like that. It's pretty good movie. Yeah, and so he was around there. Do you know about what's it called? Will Vinton Studios.
No.
You heard of that? So that was a stop motion animation studio that was up in Portland. And then Nike.
Wilvin Studios?
Will Vinton.
Will Vinton.
Yeah. And eventually they bought it. Nike bought it for his son and turned it into Leica. Do you know Leica? They did like, various movies.
Leica is another like Greek god or something, isn't it?
Leica was a dog.
Oh.
It was a dog that they shot into space. It's a Russian dog. Yeah. Yeah, and like what's one of those? Box Trolls is one of their movies. Like all those.
Oh,
kind of like,
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I always found stop motion so creepy.
Yeah.
I've always found like, and there's so many like just the way that they move, that and animatronics, like the movie The Thing.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most well done, terrifying monster films of all time because it's so grotesque. And then they redid it with CGI and it was like, this is crap. But it's because the eye kind of knows what's real and what's fake. This is my BS answer. And the original The Thing, it was like that was a really constructed figure that they had.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Moved. And that's why I love animation. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen The Thing. I've been meaning to see it. It's really frightening. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's honestly, man, I think it's one of the best horror films of all time.
Yeah. Did you see Existence?
Existence?
Yeah, Existence or something. It's like existence, but kind of missing some letters. It came out the same year as The Matrix. It's what's his name? Canadian guy who did Videodrome and The Fly and all that. Not Soderbergh. Anyways, but yeah, that's all practical effects too. Existence. It's very creepy. It's very kind of grosses people out.
Egg like EGG?
It's like EXTINZ. Yeah, it's like existence, but spelled differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean now, because like CGI, like I say, that's it's just kind of it's demystified sort of theater for myself. But then when they actually made these replicas, you're like, whoa. So I got to check out this Existence.
Yeah, that's a good one. Have you seen Raised by Wolves?
No.
That's a good show. It's on HBO right now. It's a science fiction show about Mithraism.
About which ones?
The Cult of Mithra.
Mithra.
Yeah.
That was like a dragon or something, wasn't it?
It was like a Roman cult or Greek cult, and they'd go into caves and they would horrify people like through for initiation. So, and there's like a bull involved, some sort of bull in the sun and stuff. But the opening sequence for Raised by Wolves, it's CG, but it almost looks like stop motion or something. It looks very lo-fi, and there's like a very like a neat quality to it.
I'll have to check that out. Raised by Wolves.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but with my young family, we watch Boba Fett.
Yeah.
I actually don't mind it. It's not a bad show. I mean, it's what I don't like is that Boba Fett, the most badass, Star Wars character of all time. He's like a big softie. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah,
He's
I
going
haven't.
around liquidating people.
We watched the other one.
Oh,
The
the
Mandalorian.
Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that
No,
was pretty good.
have you seen the Boba Fett one?
I saw a few minutes and stopped. I couldn't really.
It's actually not a bad show, but I'm not going to. Can I tell you what happens about half? It doesn't really spoil it, but can I tell you what happens about 3 episodes in?
Yeah.
The Mandalorian is in it.
Oh.
Because I think they're just like, okay, we need to salvage this plot here. Throw the Mandalorian in, right?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like that's their whole thing, right? Is like referring back to previous work. So they're always bringing everyone in. That's how they get you. That's the whole Disney thing, right? Like Marvel and Star Wars and all that. They're always like doing callbacks.
Yeah, that is true. The power of the callback, right?
Yeah.
The last superhero movie I saw was the Avengers Endgame. After that, I was like, man, it's not even a question of like how much money I have, which not much, but it's the time. I don't have time to watch 27 movies just to understand this next one that comes out, right? Like, everyone's like, oh, see the new Spider-Man. I'm like, oh, okay. But have you seen the other ones? I've only seen the Tobey Maguire ones. Oh, then you won't get it. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm not getting initiated into that Mithra cult, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing. It's like it's very comforting, right? To have like because you feel like you're involved in this this thing that's being sold to you.
Right. And is that not just so telling bigger picture, right? Of what's happening in the world?
Yeah, no, I mean it's very it's a real bummer.
Well, how would you describe yourself? I mean, you see, like, you don't strike me as somebody who gets caught up in the what was that thing that Edgar Allan pulled, the maelstrom? You don't get too caught up in the what's popular in society or what's trending.
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably do.
To some extent, we all do.
Yeah, but I think like as a kid, like as a kid, I was trying to like resist that. But as an adult, it's more interesting to like with Werner Herzog, right? He says the poet mustn't avert their eyes. He says that all the time. And like
Herzog says the poet must not avert their eyes.
Yeah. Like in any interview, he's always saying that. And yeah, that's the thing. Like you got to pay attention to everything. You can't, especially if it's important. Like those Marvel movies, they're pretty important, even though they're not very good. But they cost a lot of money, and people are interested in them. And they like up until what's that?
The cultural currency.
Yeah, cultural currency, but also like up until Winter Soldier, they were funded through the Pentagon, right? They got a lot of Pentagon money. And then there was some sort of like issue that they had on Winter Soldier, and they're like, fuck the Pentagon, we're not doing that anymore. We're going with NASA. And so now they get NASA money.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah. And now we have Space Force, right? So I wonder if that was kind of setting the stage for that a little bit. But
Marvel movies are funded by NASA?
Yeah. They start getting NASA money.
Shit, you got to give me a second to process that one. And the Pentagon before.
Yeah.
Whoa. Because you're right, man. Where do they get their money from? Because it's like this movie cost $3 billion to make. And you're like, what? But it made $3.2 billion. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you make a movie and you want to use like tanks or jets or whatever, the Pentagon will give it to you. But you have to clear the script with them. Right? Wow. Like that's a real thing. And big, like, so there's, propaganda and all that. Like that's what all those movies are.
Well, now Arnold Schwarzenegger makes a hell of a lot more sense. And why Latin Americans were always the henchmen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
the Russians or the Middle Easterns, like True Lies,
yeah, or
you know?
like look at like in Iron Man, the first modern Marvel movie. He's in
Iraq.
Afghanistan,
Yeah,
right?
excuse
Yeah.
me, Afghanistan. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe it is somewhere.
But
But previously, initially it was Germany in the comic.
yes.
But then it was re-released with Korea for the Korean War, and then it was redone for Vietnam. So like the actual comic, like the comics were propaganda. Um,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
but like for each war, they'd redo the story.
yeah, to make it relevant to the current
Yeah.
war going. Okay, so what's your favorite comic of all time then? Because the one that you immediately draw to my mind is Watchmen, and how
Watchmen.
that was like, I never read the comic, I saw
Yeah.
the movie, and it was like, whoa, these guys are kind of assholes. Like, they're not. This
Yeah.
was my first induction into the idea that just because you have superpowers doesn't mean you're going to be a super great person, right? You
Yeah. Yeah.
could use that. You can mismanage your talent, or is it mismanaging? I don't know.
Yeah. Watchmen, I never read. I never saw the movie. I saw the HBO series and I really liked it.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
like
I haven't
two
seen it.
2 years ago. You haven't seen it?
No,
It's really
no.
good.
You like. So would you say, Jerry always asks this question: how do you consume information? Like, what's your preferred way of consuming information? For me, it's books.
That's cool. Yeah, I read, but I don't read as much as I used to.
It's tough with children.
Yeah, yeah. It's not just children. It's just the way everything's set up.
Mm.
Yeah, it's pretty easy for me to watch not a lot of TV, but to watch some TV. And that's what I do for work too. So I kind of, uh, it makes sense to watch stuff.
Yeah, that's your medium. That's how you create, right? As
Right, right.
Herzog would say, you're a filmmaker.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like I like to read, I like to listen, I like to watch, I like to do it all.
Mm-hmm. But
Um,
your preferred one, you would say, is watching.
that's just the easiest one right now. I mean, really, I feel best
Easiest. Okay.
when I'm reading. You know,
Yeah.
like that's kind of the best thing you can do. Um, but also like listening to people talk is pretty good too. Like, because you can do that while you're walking around. I like that a lot. Yeah. Have you ever listened to Mae Brussels radio shows?
Mae Brussels, no.
Mae Brussels, like Mae Brussels apostrophe S. Um, yeah. She was on the radio from the 70s until the 80s, I think.
Okay.
And she was really interested in the Kennedy assassination, and then like what happened to all the Nazis after World War II, basically, and like where they went in America mostly.
Operation Paperclip.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Her dad was the rabbi at like one of the main temples in LA. She went to Stanford. She's really smart, and then she had this radio show, and it's great.
Is it sort of does it kind of question? Because for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, not to sound like a smartass, but I sort of look at what's going on and I try to take a step back. And Mark Twain said, when you find yourself siding with the majority, words to this effect, I'm paraphrasing, when you find yourself siding with the majority, that's a good time to look at yourself and re-examine your values. Right. And, in my life, I've been so like, rah, rah, rah. Like, yeah, I think, were you and I were talking about Bill Cosby last time?
No.
Okay. So just really quickly, I won't get knee deep into it, but it's like you hear this on the media, this person's so bad, and you're like, yeah, they're bad. And then all of a sudden they're released from prison, and you're like, well, wait a sec, like, what the hell's going on here? Like, I was so amped up to like, burn this person at the stake, and now like, so
yeah, I don't think he was exonerated.
Yeah,
right?
no. It was a poor example, but I'm just saying, like, there was a boom, 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 and then now he's free, and you're like, okay, well, then that tells you that I must not be getting all the information here because it sounded like it was a slam dunk.
Right.
And my point of what I'm saying, big picture here, is that, like, I think that we're kind of, there's perpetual motion that's carrying us in terms of how we get so amped up about things. And it's like, sometimes we need to take a step back. Like, I'm even thinking about, I work, Monday to Friday in the school system. And it's like, dude, it is exhausting. Like, I don't know how we can keep doing this. The system's going to collapse. Like, the nurses in Canada, we give so many shits about these truckers in Ottawa, but we don't talk about how our healthcare system is, like, burgeoning under the weight here.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. I think they're picking up garbage outside. You can hear it. But it's like, as we move forward, what do we do? Do we have to take a step back? Like, or are we just, like, head on collision without our seatbelts on?
Yeah. I think it's that.
I hate that, though, because now, I mean, here I go. I'm going to be selfish again. But it's like, my daughter's 2, your kids are 4.
Yeah, almost 5, 4.5, 4 and 3/4.
And it's like, now I fucking get it, Yeah. Like, this is what I care about. And if I care about my daughter, then therefore that must mean that other people care about their children. So it's like, I don't want anybody to go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that is a bummer. I mean, as for the health department or whatever, the nurses, the whole thing is kind of stretched pretty thin. We had those truckers doing stuff over here for a while. There's been waves of truckers in America, driving around and honking horns and shit. Do you know about that?
Well, other thing, go ahead.
There's one during Trump where, like, they were circling him. He was giving a speech, and you could hear all these horns honking. And he's like, "Oh, the truckers." Yeah, he's like, "Oh, they love me." It was prior to COVID, but, like, really, they're mad at him about, like, raising trucking tax or some shit. It was like something like that. Like, gas was becoming more expensive.
Relevant to them.
Yeah. But so, like, when I heard about the truckers in Canada, it's like, oh, this is like a replay. Like, they're doing the same thing again. Whoever orchestrated that because the truckers union in Canada, there's 2, right? There's 2 unions, I think.
Well, there's Teamsters.
Okay. So maybe there's 2 organizations that are kind of, like, responsible for trucking in Canada. One's like the Atlantic something or other, which I think goes into America also, and then there's something else. But they disavowed it.
Yeah. They were like, we have nothing to do with this.
Yeah, and like the same amount of Canadians that are vaccinated is proportional. Like, it's not like truckers are unvaccinated. There's like 70% of Canadians are vaccinated and 70% of truckers are vaccinated. So it's not even a real thing. It's like something else is motivating this.
That's just it, right? Like, we're told a certain narrative, right? Like, I don't know. I think in education, one of the things that we're going to have to prepare people for in the age of information is critical thinking, right? You need numeracy, you need language arts, the ability to, read, write, so on and so forth. But creative thinking, and I'll be honest, dude, I don't know about you, creative thinking was not a priority when I went to school. It was just obey, right?
Yeah.
Whereas
you went to a normal school?
Yeah, I went to a public school.
Yeah.
And dude, once again, man, the public school system nowadays, just based on my experiences and my observations being in it for 8 years, I don't know. Again, I just, tomorrow is not promised, it feels like.
Yeah, well, so I live in LA. When I was a kid, it was well known that like LA had one of like the worst school districts like around. You know, it was really bad. It still is really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna send my kids into it. But since then, there's been you know, like all the what are they called, the charter school movement and all that.
Charter school is private, right?
No, it's public, but it's
Okay.
like an alternative public system, which like when I was in Oakland, Jerry Brown, that he was the mayor of Oakland, but then he was the governor of California. Um, and he was the
Gotcha.
governor twice, right? Like he was the governor
Yeah.
in the 80s or something, and then again recently. So he put these like 4 charter schools in Oakland. I think they're pretty good. But since then, there's like a lot of charter schools in LA and like just all over the country now, and they're pretty bad overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thomas
So that's not the
Sorrell.
answer.
No, no. I
Shit, I
mean,
lost you.
oh, can you see me now?
Yeah, you said Thomas Sorrell, and then it cut out.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it's because I cut myself off because I was
Okay,
like,
okay.
I don't know what the answer is. But Thomas Sorrell, who's like a right wing writer, he's like, yeah, charter schools are the answers, and it's like, I just think that there has to be a completely different way that we're gonna do. Like, it's like, let's just double down on control or
Yeah,
whatever. It's like, well, clearly, like it's like we're circling the drain here.
yeah. Well, I mean, it might be that they're kind of doing a similar playbook to you guys right now that they did to us a few years ago. With like
Austerity
similar,
politics.
well, but I mean, like charter schools and trucker protests and all this stuff. Like we went through this a couple of years ago. Kind of like the same things, you know. And so maybe they're just focusing on Canada right now instead of America.
And who would you say is kind of
Doing that?
orchestrating all this?
I don't know. International fascism or something. Somebody is.
Well, I mean, that's like the internet. Is internet true democracy or is it complete freedom?
Well, it's neither.
What is it?
I don't.
In terms of people coming, I mean the sociological aspect of the internet.
Yeah. Well, I mean it's like corporate feudalism or something, right?
Explain that a little bit more for my tiny mind.
Well, so, I mean that's like what they're talking about. Like, it's not democratic necessarily. It's all run by corporations, right, and governments. The internet. Those are the people who control it. Occasionally, you have individual people, but like most, like we're using products produced by companies.
StreamYard, for example, the thing that we're using
StreamYard
right now.
or Google or Facebook or anything. And so they can kind of like self-police everything, you know, and they establish their own rules and all that.
So is it almost like the internet's the internet's like the wild, wild west, the gold rush, and they're like the sheriff that's trying to rein it all in?
Or it's like feudal England, you know, and like we're just serfs on the YouTube farm.
And we're surfing the internet.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, hey, that's a Joycean. Well done. You're speaking Finneganese.
Yeah, a little Finneganese. Yeah, because like, you know, like if you're a serf, you get to live there for free, but you don't really own anything and you have to work. And that's like producing YouTube videos or Instagram photos.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
This is the bit that we're cultivating.
Yeah. And like you reap a little bit of benefits from it. I was working towards getting $100 payout from Google for my YouTube videos, right? And then eventually they changed the rules and made it like more difficult. So I got up to like $70. after years. I was like, someday I'll hit that $100, and I never
Yeah.
did. And they sent out an email, and they're like, "You're not gonna get it. Like whatever we owe you, you're not gonna get it, unless it's more than $100."
And how are you getting money? Was it from views, people watching things?
For selling ads on your videos, you get like a portion. And so they kind of like, at first it was like a lot of
They
money.
duped you.
Well, yeah, for me. I mean, other people actually did get paid. I just never got paid. But there was that one woman who's like a vegan blogger, and she went to YouTube and shot people.
Wait, what?
Do you remember that? She was a vegan blogger, I think, from San Diego, or vlogger, not blogger, but vlogger.
Vlog. Yeah.
And they took away her ad revenue, and she freaked out and like went there with a gun and shot people.
Wow.
Yeah, because she was like overexerted, making all these videos. She was trying to become an influencer or something.
Yeah.
Maybe she had like
And
a
she
loan
was
out.
under the influence.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe she owed money. There was some deal where she was like stretched too thin, and she just kind of lost it. And went there and shot people. I don't know if she actually hit anyone, but she died. She was killed.
By police?
Yeah, by someone. Probably police or security or something. Yeah, like there's a Douglas Rushkoff book, Throwing Rocks at the Google Bus. Have you read that?
Is that's the name of the book? Throwing Rocks at the Google Bus?
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, it's about like the protests that were happening in the Bay Area against tech, like as the as inequality was growing.
Sorry, say that one more time.
As like inequality was growing,
Yeah. Well, I mean, like Amazon. You're right, but it's a weird corporate feudalism. It's like a corporate feudal imperialism.
Yeah.
Right? Like there is an imperial aspect here.
Yeah. Without a doubt, yeah.
Holy shit.
And that's like that is what like the right-wing tech philosopher guys, that's what they're into, is corporate feudalism. Like under the guise of libertarianism.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Like
they
like seasteading and all that. And like you'd go and you'd work for Google and you'd live on the Google Island and you'd abide by their rules until you didn't work there anymore.
Well, I wonder. I spoke to an economist a year ago, and I asked him. I was like, "Will there ever be a point where, say, Amazon could just buy a country? Like, okay, Madagascar, you're now a proprietor of Amazon."
Yeah,
it's like or these bailouts, like since this whole COVID thing. I mean, man, I can't imagine the debt that Canada and the United States are going to be in.
Yeah,
from all the things that they've had to do, and then who's been making tons of money. This is a very amateur thing that I'm just spewing out right now, of course, but who's going to bail them out? Well, Amazon is not losing money. I mean, I see one of those unmarked vans every day.
Yeah.
People getting their stuff.
Yeah.
And it's, well, like I almost wonder if that's the future, if just nations will be replaced by corporations, corporations.
Yeah, well, I think the idea is like, why would Amazon buy a country?
Yes.
They don't have to. That would just be like a bigger pain in the ass. Like they're better off.
People to manage and stuff. Yeah. I was just thinking, if they had their own country, they therefore have their own rules.
Yeah, but they already do have their own rules.
That's why I say, what an amateur thought I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why own a country?
Yeah, they already have their own rules, and they can go anywhere on Earth. Because
they can go into space. Yeah.
Wait, I just got a call. I gotta go. Gotta go get my.
No, that's okay. No worries. Well, I appreciate your time.
All
That
right.
was a good one. Thanks again.
Good talk. All right.
I
Bye.
will.